22.
22? You got to say something after that?
Yes, we have a topic for today about the energetic shift that the world is going through and or is soon to be going through, and how I know I feel it, I know you feel it, and I know a lot of people we've talked to feel it, but the things just feel, I don't know, there's this like feeling that on one hand there's a feeling like we're on a precipice of something, and on the other hand, you can just look at the world and you can see that things are just bubbling up in everybody, and I think it's all connected.
Does it feel like we're on precipice of something?
It does.
I mean, but you not have had that feeling for a long time.
I have, but it went away for a long time, but it's back. It's back to me. Is it back to you? Or did it ever leave?
I wonder if the idea of a precipice of something is just a constant change that you're feeling like, oh, the change is coming, but it's constant. Like, oh, the change is coming, change gets here, but then guess what? There's another wave of change is coming, and then it gets here. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no.
It's like these little micro.
Yeah, I've thought of that too. Is that there's
not like one precipice that will result into something. It's always a precipice.
You're always on the verge of the next thing. Like,
yeah.
By definition, basically.
Yeah, but that I think is just amplifying.
Yeah, but I mean that would just almost make this constant feeling of it. It might be,
but because it has been constant.
Yeah,
the idea of precipice to me carries the definition of something big, right? I think like, oh, precipice means something is coming, and then by definition it means big. It means I'll have to go, oh, that's the thing that I thought was coming, but in truth is, I always feel that.
Yeah, I felt that a lot a couple years ago, and then it went away.
I don't know if it ever went away.
It went away for me. I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it as acutely as I did.
Since when?
I don't know when it went away, but maybe in the last month or two, it's been back.
Are you waiting for something?
I don't think so. Nothing in particular.
It doesn't feel like you're waiting for something.
It doesn't feel like I'm waiting for something. It feels like something's coming.
Like what?
I don't know. Some sort of Brave New World. I don't know. I don't know if you ever read Brave New World. The world in Brave New World is not great.
Oh. I guess I will.
That was sarcastic. I don't think it's going to be not great. I think it will be great.
Well, I mean, that's the topic I want to discuss.
I think it will end up great, but I think it will be very hard for a lot of people to get to that point.
Yeah. So I guess I want to discuss what's actually coming, and then what are the potential outcomes of that. And I think we touched on it in the podcast, so it's not like it's a revolutionary since all of our podcasts. But I figured we will have a whole episode on it. And so however you want to interpret it, whether it's the earth shifting, whether it is some prime directive taking place, whether it is just like people being fed up with stuff, however you want to, right? Depending on your spiritual level of interpretation, you can interpret of why this is happening for any kind of reason. And honestly, it's kind of almost irrelevant. But, here's, I guess, kind of the baseline. The vibrational frequency in which we function, right? So if I draw in scientific standpoint, is just changing, period. Meaning the dense frequency that we have been very used to operating in, like the Earth, Schumann resonance frequencies, for example, it used to be 7.86. Is that what it used to be?
I don't know. I think it changes day to day.
It changes, but and I could be wrong, but I heard somebody say this, that over the last several years, if not, a decade, it has been going up slightly. Like just the general frequency of Earth, from back in the 50s and 60s to where it is right now has increased. Not by much, but gradually.
I've seen it. There's some website where you can, I think it has like a graph of it over time.
Yeah, and it fluctuates, but I think it's on a slight incline. And so the frequency of Earth. Now, if you talk about 0.01 or 0.2 change, or 0.001 or 0.2 change, it might be people think, well, what's the net? On the net, it's not even 1, right? But it matters if that is the shift that the Earth is experiencing, and we're occupants of Earth.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so the density, the way the dimensional propagation works, I say dimensional, like multidimensional layering, right? Like people refer to third dimension or fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh or whatever. The way dimensionality works is you have frequency bands that we operate in. And Earth, this densified material world, has had a frequency that was very stabilized in. Our minds, our bodies have been stabilized into a very particular frequency. And thus it holds dense matter, right? Like it holds dense thought. And so goes back to the frequency, or to the book of the letting go that we did a whole episode on. He talks about how our density is equivalent to our emotions. He doesn't say that, but that is basically what he means within that chart.
Yeah.
Right. And so emotions of anger and judgment and fear hold much harder density. And then, like that book, he assigned a lower numerical value to them. And then emotions of joy and love and peace and harmony and gratitude are higher emotions, meaning lighter density.
Right.
But then with him, he assigned a larger numerical value to them.
Yeah. My, I have a engineering type of background. And so I had the hardest time with, these words of frequency and density and whatever, because, they have like a very literal meaning to me. And it took me a while to really understand what that means. It's not like a literal frequency. I mean, maybe the Schumann resonance is a literal hertz, but when we talk about, raise your frequency, raise your vibration, or the flip side is lower your density. They're, kind of opposites of each other. It's in an energetic sense. That took a long time for me to kind of wrap my head around.
Do you think it took a lot of time for you to wrap your hand around because you didn't want to hear what was being said?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was, I wanted to fit it all into my, is it the left brain, the thinky brain, and right brain's the feely brain. I
Well,
forget. I wanted to cram it all into my
there's no fitting in. You just have to be open.
Right. I wanted to cram it all into and make it all fit in my existing worldview. That's what I wanted. That's why it was so hard for me, because I'm like, I don't think I wanted to change the way I thought. And
Because you were
so,
right. Everybody else was
I'm
wrong.
right. I'm stubborn. Still a bit stubborn. Just a bit. got the eyebrows on that one. Combined with, if it's a literal hertz frequency, then it can be measured and proven and disproven and whatever, right? It brings it down into the world of science and this base reality that I'm so familiar with, or have been so familiar with and comfortable with, that it's easy for me to. It would be easy for me to understand, yet I couldn't understand it. Therefore, it was easier for me to kind of dismiss.
Yeah, but that's the stubbornness.
Yeah, no, I know. I know that.
This is like quite literally exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I'm helping you make a point here.
No, but if we live in the world that we have become accustomed to, and that world is safe and it's familiar,
I don't know if I would say safe, but it is familiar. Maybe it feels safe.
No, it feels safe.
Yeah.
Right. I'm talking about our perception of that word.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the actual truth behind it, the perception, right?
Yeah.
It's safe, it's familiar. So what is in their expression like, oh, there's the demon you know, and then there's the demon you don't, or what's the
The devil you know and
the
the devil you don't know.
and the devil you don't, right? And so
Yeah. And which is the maybe pessimistic version of the grass is greener on the other side. The grass is always greener on the other side.
no, this is the opposite of that.
Yeah. And then when you get to the other side, it's like, well, that grass is still greener.
Well, no, in this case is stick with your status quo because you got to be scared of what's over there because you don't know. And guess what? It's also
you're
as
right.
bad as it is.
It is the opposite. It's not the negative version. It is the opposite.
It's the opposite. You have to hold on to this crap, like literally the demon or the devil or whatever that expression is, right? This is what you know, ... presuming that over there is also shit.
Yeah. It's like, I know this, and I know that there's some problems with this, but
I'm well familiar with it.
Yeah, but that's big and unknown and scary. So I'll just stay here.
No, and so
it's just fear.
No, it's fear. And so I want to draw kind of an overarching prophecy of where Earth is headed. And then we can discuss the nuances of that. But this might help. So this might help those who are kind of like on that on the clasp of like not being open enough to see what's happening, but possibly still being confused of how this is affecting them. It will help you answer that question. As our prime directive or change or shift or whatever you want to call it, dimensional reality, it's quite irrelevant as far as the term that we use, changes, right? Or amplifies in lightness. We will not be able to hold lower frequency. By lower frequency, I mean the density of the thoughts that are very rigid and justified and held in
on that chart.
On that chart, but
I'll put it up here.
Yeah, but if you do not reference the chart as far as the numbers go, if you just look at the positioning of these emotional ranches.
Yeah, I don't think the numbers matter, at least for this conversation. It's like down here's the low ones of anger, fear, guilt, shame. I forget exactly what they are. And it goes up, through neutrality being like the middle balancing point, tipping point, up to like love and joy
and gratitude.
Yeah,
I think are up there.
Yeah, so you could think of this as lower and higher. You could think of this as denser and less dense, lower frequency, higher frequency. The terminology may not be super important here, but that's that's where we're going.
Yeah, but I think this is the point that I wanted to emphasize, or it feels like this is a precipice, right? Of why it feels like this precipice is because quite literally, we, each one of us, you and me included, will not be able to hold these lower emotional vibrational frequencies or these lower, emotions anymore. Right. And when in the past, some people ventured in to, on a path of awareness or spiritual enlightenment or self-discovery to go, well, let me find myself and not live here. That was almost like a choice or higher spiritual guidance that was pulling you there. But the amount of people that were on that path were far and few in between, right? In comparison to 8 billion of us now, right? But now, for better or worse, no one will have a choice in not making that choice.
Right. And if you do try to hold on to it, it's like a pressure cooker.
Mm-hmm.
And it amplifies itself. And it, kind of explodes out in interesting ways.
Yeah. So that status quo, the devil you will basically be fighting tooth and nail to hold on to the devil
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless you see through this objective of self, like your higher self is guiding you in this direction, let's say. Unless you see through it and you will start to search for ways within your own being to allow yourselves to start letting go of these denser emotions, unless you actualize that in yourself and see it and actually start going down that path,
Yeah.
you'll be forced onto that path. And
Yeah.
so,
It's a hard bottom versus a soft bottom.
sure, right. But the reason I bring this up is because technically you would say, oh, well, why does it matter? This is a very personalized journey. And so if those who need to hit the bottom of the bottom and basically go losing themselves could do that. And then those who choose to actually see through the fog and realize, oh, wait, this is coming into me, then that's their personal choice, right? So from
Ye-
that standpoint, why does it matter?
I mean, yes, that is their personal choice. But at the same time, it's like, I think everybody also has the option to choose it. You may not choose. You may go, nope. Subconsciously, at least, you may, you know, think you need it the hard way instead of the easy way. But yeah,
Well, and that's the part that I wanted to emphasize, is because we are kind of at the precipice of figuring out how this will play out for Earth 101 right now. Whether this process of ascension or this process of awakening or this process of upgrade will be less bad or really bad. And
foundation style.
mm,
Foundation style.
yeah, maybe. And so that this is where we are right now, right? This is the beginning. So we're recording this in the beginning of 2024, right? That this is right now we have that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I say it's a very individualized choice. Like you would say, like, oh, well, sounds like everyone's just responsible for themselves. But it is very much going to come down into mass consciousness.
Yeah.
And so how does densified being unravel itself? How does density release itself so it can go through neutrality into the positive, light-hearted emotions that is indeed your essence, right? How do you uncover this garbage of shit and become not the devil but become the light that is your truth? And for some people, it's through kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
Right? For you, it was through kicking and screaming. Now, everybody's version of kicking and screaming, looks differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if somebody's being pushed, right, meaning their emotions will start come to the surface, or if you are holding on anger and have been holding on to anger for all of your life, and that is your number one emotional output, like, oh, guess what? The second something happens, anger.
Yeah.
How does that being released? Well, it will start coming more and more, right? Because each opportunity of that anger coming up is an opportunity for you to see through it, so then you can release it out, not into the world unto others, which is what the cautionary tale here is, but release it out in the contained, assimilated way to where you're actualize into the emotions behind the anger, and then just simply release it, almost dissolve it into nothing, like cotton candy in water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That densified matter that you perceive cotton candy to be will just quite literally not exist if you do this the right way.
Yeah. Very much letting go style.
Letting go style, right? Otherwise, what the pitfall is, or what the most obvious thing here is, everyone will start taking this anger they have felt forever, and instead of going within and letting go or raising their frequency and then inserting love into it and understanding and giving themselves grace, what they will do is they will externalize it out onto the rest, right?
Yeah. And we see a lot of that.
Yeah. And so all conflict, all wars, all hatred, all judgment, what else am I forgetting here? Whatever else that falls under that bucket, come out from that. From I feel something inside. I don't know what I feel, but guess what? It's anger. So guess what I'm going to do? Instead of going within and feeling what is it that I'm actually trying to feel, you will push that out into the outside source. And honestly, the outside source doesn't even matter. You will pick whatever the easiest target is, whatever happens to fit into your
Yeah.
world of understanding.
Yep.
And you will attack that group or those beings or that concept. I mean, heck, you might even go and protest war, right? Like everybody says that, but people don't understand that. We heard it again yesterday, right? Those people who go to protest war. It's like, well, ostensibly, guess what? It's war. Why would you not say no to war? Why would you not go protest war, right? But in essence, that is the same energy of war.
Right. It's, I mean, there's this, it sounds subtle, but there's a difference between protesting war and being for peace.
I mean, by subtle, I mean there's like energy of like energy.
Yeah.
Protest of war is same thing as war, or there's peace.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with protest.
Right. And I mean, that would have been hard for me to understand a while ago too, is because they sound like anti-war and pro-peace sound like synonyms. And I think to a lot of people they are synonyms, but there's a difference on an energetic level between those two things.
Yeah, well, anti-war is what? It's judgment and hatred.
Yeah, anti-anything.
Anti-anything is judgment and hatred.
Yes, not a fan of war, but transmute that into promoting peace, promoting love.
Yeah.
Whatever that means for you.
Or simply do not insert your energy into like-minded energy of warfare. Going and protesting for peace is still warfare energy against something. War is already against something, right? Why do we need to insert that? Who was the lady yesterday? She talked about the interview with Diane Sawyer. We did not hear this interview. I did not know this until yesterday. But Diane Sawyer had an interview with Osama bin Laden's sister-in-law.
Sister-in-law, yeah.
Sister-in-law, or sister? I don't remember.
Sister-in-law, yeah.
And she asked him, "Well, do you hate him? Right? Do you hate him for what he has done? Like, do you hate him for what he's done to America?" This is in reference to 9/11. You know, we're not going to get into that subject. And she said, "No, I don't remember the exact details."
She said, "No, I don't hate him. He hated, and look what that did."
Right. So in that aspect, right, in all intents and purposes, you would go, "Well, you would hate Osama bin Laden. Like, I mean, look what he did," right?
Right.
But that would be like-mind energy of Osama bin Laden.
Right. And she recognized that hatred at all, even hatred toward evil, just the nature of hatred, the energy that hatred brings and infects,
yes,
is what caused 9/11 and countless other atrocities throughout human history.
Yeah,
it's hatred, and but it's hard. It feels like, well, yeah, I should hate this guy. He's a bad guy. It almost feels like that. It almost that's seems like human nature to some degree.
Yeah.
But
well, you're fighting injustice.
You're fighting
anger.
You're fighting injustice.
Yeah.
Right? Because someone's got to fight injustice.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't fight injustice, won't injustice prevail?
That
gotta do something
through fear. You're afraid. You're afraid that injustice will prevail, because the only thing that can stop injustice is more injustice.
Right. You have to injustice against the injustice, so that your side, the right side,
the
wins.
Justice side,
right,
of injustice.
Right.
No, right.
It's become a tongue twister.
It is right. It would be very difficult to understand, especially if you're on the receiving end of 9/11 or war in Ukraine or war in Israel or hatred towards African Americans or hatred towards Jews, right? How can you, someone who, like in my case, someone who has been discriminated out of all of my life for whatever reason, you name it, right? At any point go, I love everybody, right? There's endless love. And what I actually feel for those people who have to come at me with any kind of hatred is actually utmost compassion.
Right.
Like tear-jerking compassion.
But that is the core of Jesus's teachings right there.
Yeah.
It's not hate thy enemy,
It's love thy.
love thy enemy. Right?
Well, but the truth is there's no such thing as enemy.
Right.
There's just us.
Right. But that's the almost the paradox of it, is that when you love your enemy, you don't have any enemies.
Well, right. I mean, besides the fact that you would step back and go, there is no other, right? There is no, quite literally, there is no other. It's just I.
Yeah.
Right. And the amount of compassion you can feel through the understanding that everyone is just you with a different flavor of ice cream, right? Or Kool-Aid.
I don't know. Kool-Aid's the best metaphor to go with.
Why is that?
Really?
No, I don't get it.
There, all those suicide cults, they would poison the Kool-Aid, and so when they say drink the Kool-Aid, that's the reference, is that you're drinking the poison Kool-Aid.
I've never heard of it.
There was I don't remember which one. I think it was the Hale-Bopp comet back in the 90s.
Oh wait, I just when I was researching Haley's, I read about something about Hale-Bopp.
Yeah, I think it was Hale-Bopp. And I don't remember, was it Hale-Bopp that crashed into Jupiter? One of them crashed into Jupiter. I think it was that one.
You mean like, is this an reference to drinking the Kool-Aid? Is that what the expression is?
Yeah, when you drink the Kool-Aid, it's because there was this cult that like, oh, means it's the end times. And so they all got together on the day that it either crashed into Jupiter or when it came close to Earth or whatever. And they made poison Kool-Aid, and they all together drank the poison Kool-Aid. And they all died. There's some suicide cult. So drinking the Kool-Aid is a little kind of a sarcastic comment of like blindly following the leader. I don't know if drinking the Kool-Aid's the right analogy. But yes.
The analogy that I'm drawing is on flavors of Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It is.
Sure.
It's
I don't know.
It's liquid.
I don't know if they gave their members an option for different flavors of poison Kool-Aid or not.
But that rhetoric of following the masses, right, does not play into this.
Sure.
Right. It's the same thing. It's like, oh, guess what? We're getting together. I'm going to go protest the war in Ukraine, or nobody cares about the war in Ukraine, but the war in Israel. I don't know if it's still going on.
I think so.
Or the Jews, whatever. We're going to go protest the Jews.
They're still going on.
That will always go on and on and on. Right. And then for all intents and purposes, you will go, oh, yeah, I'm going to go protest the war because, of course, I'm pro-peace, right? And then blindly, I guess in this case, in the Kool-Aid reference that you made, you follow the masses to protest something with the energy of war, with the energy of fight, with the energy of aggression.
Shortly after the war in Ukraine started, we attended a protest downtown.
Yeah, well, I intended it for a specific reason, though.
I was really taken aback by there's almost like two sides to it.
Mm-hmm.
There was like,
that was interesting to see.
There was the side of love and compassion, and then there was a side of fuck Putin.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Literally marching through the streets chanting that, and I'm like, death to Putin, and
I don't remember what it was.
It was all very, very hate filled.
Yeah,
I'm like, I can't get behind that message. I would like the war to stop. Believe me.
Yeah, but us being there added to that. Right now, I realize.
Yeah.
Even though my intention was love and my intention was de-escalation. A lot of people were so angry, right? That the war of Ukraine highlighted the war within them.
Yeah. It
And
was really obvious.
it was very obvious. And so what the passion and the tears and the anger that they felt about the Ukraine now being at war was quite literally just an extension of something they could marry on the outside of what they felt on the inside.
Yeah.
Right? The
Yeah.
pain they were already feeling got projected out into this scenario. In fact, the person who ended up leading the parade, I did not know this. I do not know these people, and so it doesn't really matter as far as my opinions go here. But she's Ukrainian, right? There was two people that were leading them. They were Ukrainian. I guess the token Ukrainians in our city. um, and then there's a whole bunch of other people, Ukrainians, that came in, and then also from other Soviet Union countries who were just supporting this whole thing. It is. I will say it's weird to be supporting Ukraine, having grown up in Soviet Union, and through the communism, rhetoric, at least if nothing else, let's say this was propaganda in some ways. Some people would say that, but what I was always taught is the oneness of us all.
Right.
The oneness of all Soviet Union countries as one. And in fact, there were all these amazing posters. Maybe you can flash some of them here of the country trying to bring in oneness between all the different Soviet cultures. Because the vastness of the Soviet Union was so big to where, you went all the way to China, and touched the cultures that were in the Baltics and in the Middle East. And so, I don't know, to me, what I got out of the message was oneness.
Yeah.
Now, propaganda, maybe. Was it all kosher? Probably not.
I mean, to a degree, growing up in the 80s here in the United States, it felt like there was this connection between the states. We're literally a united states. And yet today, the states feel more polarized than ever before.
Well, realistically, the states just reflect the message of the feeling of the overarching community that is within that.
Yeah.
One is driven politically, two economically, based on what kind of companies are inserting themselves into the political obligations.
But I think that gets back to the original point, is that it's the pressure cookers pressurizing, and you see it in the states, and you see it in
religion and politics.
You see it between Russia and Ukraine. These two countries which were inextricably linked. Not 30 years ago, but Israel and Gaza. These were like embedded inside
in each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's no separation there at all.
Right.
But yet you're fighting the internal fight to separate, to justify. Yeah. And so what I'm saying is that feeling of separation and anger has always possibly been there, right? And the prejudice has always been building, right? But sooner or later, when that prejudice and anger and division builds up enough, it needs to explode. And unless that explosion goes into enlightenment, like into self-actualization, go, oh my gosh, look what I'm feeling on the inside, which, let's be honest, is a lot of work and a lot of honesty that most of us do not want to have with ourselves, right? So if you don't go that route until, okay, let's just me be honest with myself.
That's the harder route.
Yeah.
That's the more uncomfortable route.
Yeah. Because you can't go, oh, it's on them. It's the Russians.
Yeah.
Or it's the Jews, or it's the blacks, or it's the Palestinians, right? Whatever. The second you go, okay, if it's not them, what could it be?
Yeah.
right? If
And
you just take them out of the picture, whatever the them is, whatever the external outlet that you're trying to grab onto, if it's not war and me protesting war, then how do I feel inside?
then there's responsibility.
Responsibility, or guess what? I have to look in, and that fucking hurts.
A responsibility to look in.
Yeah.
I mean, it turns into an actual responsibility. And you know what people don't like? Responsibility.
Yeah.
I don't like responsibility. It is harder. There's no way around it. It is the harder path. It just is.
Yeah.
But it's the only honest path because it's not them. It's not any of these other groups. It's not anything external. It's you have control over one thing, and that's yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If you have control over yourself, you certainly don't have any control over these other groups.
The whole idea of control
Right?
is already a self-identified issue.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe reword it. If you're out there trying to, basically control the other groups through protest or through message of hate or whatever,
Or protest for peace.
even a protest for peace, that is ostensibly trying to control Russia to leave.
Yeah.
The more it's, I don't know. It's not. I don't even think it's effective.
What's worse is it breeds like-minded energy.
Right.
If we look at everything as frequency, right? There's a term that somebody threw out there that is, I guess, caught on to some extent, but I think there's other terms, like Robert Sheldrake uses a term of morphic field, and somebody else uses the term of egregores. And meaning, if there's a thought that has enough people putting their energy into it, right? So on our last episode, we talked about religion, right? If enough religious people go into one congregation and put a thought of hatred towards, let's say, gays into that congregation, then that is an egregore that feeds and exists as its own entity, hatred, period. But in this particular case, it's the flavor of gay, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The generation of my parents in the United States grew up in the middle of the Cold War, and there was this ingrained fear, which led to hatred of the Soviet Union.
Mm.
There was any minute now, someone's got a button, and it's going to start World War III, nuclear apocalypse, and you might have the button because that's where you're from. That's a different story. And so to this day, there is this ingrown distrust and hatred for that whole 13 countries. Just anybody associated with that. You're just despite people who weren't even born, people who were born after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Still, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're all grouped in together. This hatred just runs amok and propagates itself.
Well, but it's So what is it? It's the generation of people who grew up in their young age, toddler years, adolescence, even teenage years, or, whatever, all that propagation, with being fed the rhetoric of fear of those people.
Yeah.
And with that, right, at that age, we talked about this. Let's say you're 5. You cannot process what is it that you're afraid of. The only thing you know is you're practicing nuclear bomb drills, right? And you cannot even comprehend the extent at which this fear runs your body.
Right.
And so you have trapped fear of, guess what? Those people, in that case, Soviet Union, has ruined my life because I grew up in fear. And then till this day, because you have done zero self-development and self-actualization and actually looking within, you're walking around with that fear still very much as aliveness of your being.
Right.
And then anytime anything happens in the outside world that reminds you that that's still a stuck emotion inside of you, you grab onto that and go, oh, here, it's them again. Look at them. There go again. There's the Putin again. Now, I'm not pro-Putin and I'm not pro-Ukraine. I am Ukrainian, right? But I'm pro-peace.
Yeah.
right? I'm not against war. I'm pro peace.
Every few years, another boogeyman comes up. After 9/11, it was the the whole Middle East
Yeah,
was
the whole
was
because we went
was
after Saddam Hussein after Osama bin
sure.
Laden.
It was basically any Persian, Arabic country, all of that that's the new boogeyman. They're all the bad guys. We can't trust them. There's this hatred toward them. I mean, people were getting you know beat up and killed in the streets because they were
Muslim
Muslim,
or look Muslim.
or looked Muslim.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
But
I
but
think
then
I
but
hope
then after that expired, right? What did we do? We invent another conflict, which is now Russia.
yeah, no, back to Russia.
Right?
It's easy. It gotta if you don't have a boogeyman, if
By
it,
boogeyman, it's external outlet for anger.
I say boogeyman. What I mean is, it's the whole nation has kind of agreed. Here's the new bad guy flavor of the day. It's Russia again, and it's well, there's a lot of division whether it's Gaza or Israel. So uh, the Russia Ukraine war it seems to be pretty unified that Russia's the bad one, but
Well, in
that's
this
a
case,
different story.
Yeah, in this case, it's very easy for everyone in America to make Russia the bad guy. And I'm not saying they are or they're not. That's irrelevant because the pain body of the post-Soviet fear of
Mhm.
Cold War is still alive.
Yeah.
And then you see Ukraine as those people see Ukraine as the victim of that regime that dictated the Cold War, right? That brought in fear into United States during Cold War. That is the same energetic signature and extension that has never left. It has never been dissolved. It always kept itself alive. And now we're just able to pick on it and go, oh, guess what? We'll just place it back where it used to be.
Just throw some more gasoline on that fire.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
we never actualized what we felt, all the trauma that I say we, the baby boomers of the United States accomplished or received from the idea of the Cold War.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever, now some people may be doing some digging and some work, but I see this trauma in my dad. I see the same Cold War trauma that United States people are feeling in the baby boomers age here is the same Cold War trauma that my dad has left in him being a Ukrainian, right? Or at that time, a Jew in Ukraine, right? Not any different, right? So the people that the United States people are hating for subjecting them to that fear is my dad, who is also afraid of that same fear. The United States was the actuary of.
That we had a button too.
Right. And so what's ironic here is both sides are propagating the same fear against each other that they never processed. And they're keeping it going and alive today.
Right. Now, I mean, the cynical or maybe conspiracy theory, just part of me thinks that there's an agenda behind that.
Political agenda.
Yeah, a political agenda
yeah.
behind. Oh well, it's good for business, good for power, good for money, good for whatever to have the people united against whoever it happens to be this day.
Yeah, I mean
But
that's
beside the point.
Yeah, that conversation. Here's what that brings up in me. That brings up that hopeless feeling, right? That machine is running so fat and so big, and there's so much money. It's all about money and control.
Yeah.
And then there's so much. The machine of money and machine of control has just basically outgrown anything it could fit into right now, and it's continued to basically outgrow, right? The greed, like how much money can we yank out of this if we do this, this, and this, and that. All that is fear, right? Why someone functioning greed is because there's a fear of what's on the other end of that, right? Why greed? Because inside you're afraid of whatever, right? Like, oh, I won't have enough, right? At some point, if you have billions of dollars, it is it is harder for like normal people like us to go, well, how much is enough? Like you already have billions of dollars and you already run the world. Is that not enough? But that train, is full force in, and the blinders are on, and there's zero self-evaluation. And so it just keeps on chugging and chugging and chugging. And so it is almost like out of control, and not even, it is difficult to comprehend or understand. Uh, but it is because all logic, all heartfelt love and peace has left the plane. And you're just right there in those lower emotions of fear and scarcity and anger and judgment and frustration.
Yeah.
And if you spend enough time there, as a country or as a political organization or as a congregation or as a group of people, it is so, so difficult to leave that box of space.
Yeah. It lingers.
In fact, you have literally sold the story to yourself so much. And then, in fact, if you're in power right now, that means you got there by selling the story to everyone around you.
Yeah. I mean,
You can't even think of that not being true. There's almost like zero attempt or chance for you to pause and to go, wait, what have I been saying for the last 3 decades? What, let's say in your case, truth have I been propagating? Or what untruth?
Yeah.
There's zero chance
Yeah.
for self-evaluation.
You'll lose your next election if you do that.
Yeah, and I know that's cynical, but it stems from the train. The train has been going for so long and has momentum, and then that momentum keeps you safe. There's right.
Yeah.
For what if you look at everyone as a broken child, afraid broken child, and everything they do in this life is there to mitigate the shithole of pain that they feel inside, then you can see through everything. Right? What in this action, if it is not love and it's not light, what are they trying to mitigate? And usually it's pain.
Yeah.
Or being scared, unloved, untaken care of. And that can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess maybe the cautionary tale here is, if you're not feeling it yet, I say you, but the viewers, but also us, like I feel it, right? There will be zero possibility for us to continue to be blind to our own untruth.
Yeah. Yeah. It gets more. It's like I mean, I think it's like a pressure cooker. It's just the pressure's just going up, 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 and either you can let it out yourself gently.
Yeah.
By self discovery, self introspection, or you can let it explode eventually.
Mm-hmm. But there's two standpoints here. There's those who are on the path of self discovery, and they're starting to see through the fog, right? But as things will continue to amplify, and those who are under the pressure cooker scenario will continue to spout out into the world, those who have even the slightest bits of self awareness will have a choice to either engage, combat, voice off, and try to go into that scenario and either fight off or add their voice in or not into the rhetoric, the further rhetoric, or they can choose to step back and say, you know what, that is how their stories played out, but I have a choice myself to go within.
Yeah.
That could be their truth. And you can see through their truth. You can see through their pain. Now you can offer them love and light, but I would caution not to engage and add your energy into their pressure cooking explosion.
Right. I mean, I mean, I 100% agree. The thing is, it almost feels antithetical to how I was brought up. It's like, yeah, you've got to stand against whatever the atrocity of the day is. You have to fight injustice,
But you can offer it love.
or you can offer love.
Offering it love, and maybe this is the confusion, offering it love is not promoting the injustice. It is simply attempt to see through someone else's pain, right? Going, I might not understand it, but I see them as a broken being,
Right.
as a broken child trying to go externally, trying to resolve something that is broken within. And instead of going and fighting them, you can go, I have an opportunity here. Like quite literally, your voice matters, not in the sense that you have to go out there and add on to their hatred with your different angle of hatred, but you can add on love to their hatred.
And that sounds passive, but that does not have to be a passive thing.
No.
If there's an injustice and you have the ability to stop it, I would say you have a moral obligation to stop it. Right? If you're walking down the street and you see someone, kicking a homeless guy, if you can stop that, you should stop that.
Through love.
Through love.
And compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this brings me back to our Philadelphia story. Do you remember? We were, it's personal, but I feel very passionate about this. We're in Philadelphia, and we're standing in line to see the Liberty Bell.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Not a big line. This is like COVID time, I think. So the line is outside, and then they're like only letting so many people in to see the Liberty Bell. And we're behind a group of people. It doesn't seem like they're together. So there was two couples, a couple, and then there was the four of us. And we're standing there, and they see a bug on the ground.
A lanternfly.
Yeah, and I don't know what they are.
Yeah, they're not here in Kentucky.
And they're trying to stomp it down.
And this bug is agile. This particular one is very agile, and he keeps, like at the last moment, he'll and they can't seem to get him.
But to them, it's a game. Like it's a game of, can I stomp this thing to death? Like to me, my stomach is starting inside. Can I kill this thing? And it is a game.
Right.
And my children are standing there watching this. No, I will say this. We have raised our children on the no-kill premises.
Yeah. Catch and release.
Catch and release, right? So if it's a spider or if it's a centipede, which is what we have in our house, if it's mosquitoes are difficult to catch, but if it's a fly, we attempt to catch inside our house and release.
Right.
Sometimes I accidentally kill a fly in that process or break its leg or whatever. I mean,
but it's not intentional. Yeah.
No.
The goal is, well, let's get you out.
And so the fact that these four beings, one in their mind want to stomp this thing to death.
Yeah, and they've justified it.
It's okay. One, there's not even a consideration or thought that this is not something that they will do. And two, then turn it into a game because this thing seems to be kind of jumpy. And that basically now, I will say negative words here, but now they're like horses trying to stomp on this thing to see who can kill it and when. And I'm just appalled by the whole thing.
Right.
Like I'm turning inside and I want to vomit still talking about this. And so I just pick him up with my hand. I didn't have a problem picking him up, unlike they had a problem killing him. And I just walk him off, maybe 50 yards away from these people.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, it's a invasive species. We're supposed to kill it. They almost felt like they had a duty to kill it. But
it was a game. You can tell the evil that was propagating out of the game of trying to stomp this thing down. And in fact, these four people two random people that have never seen each other before bonded to themselves. Like they created this little tribe of four through the attempt to kill this living being that is the creation of God.
Right. I mean, I understand. I mean, we don't have lanternflies here, but we have the emerald ash borers, and they have killed almost every ash tree around. And I understand. I want my ash trees back. I do. I miss them. But I'm still not going to go stomp on an emerald ash borer.
Turn it into a game.
Especially for sport, which makes it even.
It looked like sport. It looked like sport.
Even worse.
And so they gave me a look, like this evil look, like, oh no, we were totally justifying in doing that. And I don't remember what I said. It was something smart alecky back because I just couldn't. Like at the point, I'm just standing there. It's either I walk out of that line and skip the Liberty Bell situation, and then my children are appalled, and I'm appalled, and then to them, this is just a game. War is a game to them.
Yeah.
All humanity was lost between these two couples, these four random individuals that came together and bonded over killing. And that, to me, that was the epitome of what it means to be completely lost as a human being. And then I thought to myself, and I know this was a judgmental statement, one of the ladies was very obviously pregnant. And I thought,
don't remember that.
Yeah, she was very obviously pregnant.
But then that's what she's, that's the energy that she's feeding to her unborn child. Besides
that, I thought, you are carrying a miracle of birth, miracle of God, right? I'm not a Christian religious person here. I'm just saying that every child is a miracle, right? Whether or not you believe in God or not.
But every life
miracle in being
is a miracle, even if it's this
a child
invasive
is a life.
Even if this is invasive species, is that not a life?
But there's a rhetoric that you decided to marry to say that this is an invasive species and not a creation of God. And then your job as this random individual in line to Liberty Bell is to exterminate it in the front of everyone else and turn it into a gameplay? While you're carrying an unborn living being inside your womb?
Hard not to judge.
No, it was... yes, I was judging at the time. But I was... At that moment, I was at my wit's end as far as what dirty humanity looks like. What living in complete blindness to respect of nature looks like.
Yeah.
Right? And they got upset at me for being upset at them. And they were trying to sell me on some sort of sales pitch of why that action was justifiable.
Right.
And in fact, the reason why they were trying to sell me on it is because inside their being, that is a justifiable action. They have been sold on the idea that there's zero value to a living being, in this case, a bug.
Yeah. It's easy to turn something into the boogeyman. It's these, I don't know exactly what the lanternflies do. I'm sure it's not great. I'm sure it's probably something that is destructive to the ecosystem in the same way that the emerald ash borers here are destructive to the ecosystem. I wish that they had never come over from wherever they came from, and they came over and oh, ash trees, those are great. Chomp, 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 kill all the ash trees. I wish that never happened.
But the energy there is eradication and hatred and separation and disrespect of a living being.
There's a subtle difference there between I wish the ash trees would survive versus I'm going to go stomp on every emerald ash borer I can find. I've never actually seen one in real life. They're always hiding underneath the ash.
Yeah, I've never seen them ash borer.
But yeah, I wouldn't kill one even if I found one. I might take it somewhere else away from the ash trees around here, but
no,
I don't know.
I mean, I was raised in the extermination sense.
I was too.
You know,
we would fly swat everything.
Yeah, my parents had us fly swatter. They would stomp on ants if there was an ant in the house. If there was moles, I mean, heck, when you and I first got together, that was the thing you would do. You would try to kill moles, right?
Yeah.
So that extermination thing was part of my upbringing. Like that is a
Right.
normal thing to do.
And I don't know if there are times when there's no other option. If you have mice or rats in your house, I don't know if it's possible to catch and release. I don't know. It's tricky.
With us, we had mice in our house.
We had a lot of mice.
And then what we did, I guess, to begin with, before we were aware, we had the poison that we set out.
Yeah.
But afterwards, we realized, we can do the
like they have a bucket and have a little thing, and
no, not that. To get them not to come in to begin with by stuffing the metal
steel
wool into all the cracks around the house.
Yeah.
And that stopped it all.
And having that Mr. Snuggles outside, the cat, may have helped too.
Well, no, we went everywhere around the house and we stuffed wool into all the little cracks.
Every little crack, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can't chew through steel wool.
Yeah, they just kind of abandoned that.
It's basically a solid wall, yeah.
Well, I think it would be even worse than brick because, at least brick you can gnaw on, and this thing would be appalling to get your teeth around. But yeah, or same thing with the ants. Instead of ant killer, coffee grounds, right?
Yeah, coffee grinds. They
don't like it.
Here's where they're coming in. Here's the little crack they're coming in. Just put a whole bunch of coffee grinds there. Within a day or two, they're not coming in anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, this because they don't want to deal with that.
But through years and decade of this extermination mindset,
mm-hmm.
we've lost touch with natural,
right?
Homeopathic. One, let's say pest control, right? The idea of the fact that even a pest, right? But yes, I do not want ants on my dinner table, right? But we've lost touch with what it means to be one with nature. And if the nature is coming in to eat your food, what is the natural ways to deter it from, let's say, this space that you're occupying, as opposed to killing it?
Yeah, there's this very, I don't know if it's just Western, but it seems Western sense of, as a human being, I am at the top of the food chain, at the top of the pyramid, and I have not only can I completely control the environment around me, but I am entitled to completely control the environment around me, and to the point where I don't like this. I don't like this tree here. I'm going to chop it down. I don't like these bugs here. I'm going to kill them. I don't whatever it is. There's this entitlement to that I don't think the indigenous people would have. I don't think,
even Eastern cultures.
Or Eastern cultures. Sure, if you need firewood, that's one thing. But I don't like the look of that tree. Chop it down.
Well, the whole point of firewood is...
Oh, you would want a dead tree for firewood. You're not chopping down a live tree for firewood.
Yeah, you can't even burn a live tree for firewood. That's the whole point of it. Is so,
okay, you recycle. Maybe here's a dead tree still standing. We'll take it.
Yeah.
As if there's not enough on the ground already.
No, but that's the thing. Is that wouldn't even make sense, right?
Yeah.
We have but maybe something to emphasize here. Through our pain, unprocessed anger and judgment and hatred and internal turmoil, we have lost touch with respect for nature, respect for other beings.
Coexisting with
life.
In the universe, the earth.
Creation of divine, right? If you don't believe in God, creation of divine.
Right.
The fact that it exists here in the front of you means that it has a purpose. Right? It's just by the mere of that, right? At what point that purpose gets deemed as unnecessary by you, and then thus makes you responsible for extermination of that being or creature or plant or tree.
Right. And there are, to the extent that I'm going to not plant something here in order to not have something there, maybe that's a better way to achieve. I guess when you're literally ending the life of something, that feels like it's too much to me.
That bug thing was too much.
Yeah.
It was the epitome of everything that was wrong with the world. And it was amplified by the fact this human being, this woman who was playing this game, was carrying an unborn child.
I don't remember the unborn child.
I just couldn't bring myself to understand how someone who creates, a woman who's a creator, right, who's a birther of life, bringer of life, through this divine magic that is unexplainable by all means, as far as what the heck, how does this even happen to us as women, right, or as humans, can then know that feeling inside of her, knowing what it means to carry life and to bring life forth, and then decide to participate in murder.
Yeah.
And in this case, what she deems to be lesser than creature, which is whatever this little bug was.
Right. But I mean, it's not a big stretch to turn that into an us versus them.
Yeah.
And one of the whole premises of slavery is that the slaves were not even human.
Yeah.
They're not even, they're subhuman. Therefore, it's okay to enslave them and force them to work. It's okay to kill them because they're not even human.
Yep.
Or, in war, if your side dehumanizes the other side, then it's not such a big deal to mow them down with your machine guns and slaughter them because they're not even human. They're subhuman.
But here's what's interesting to me. In war, thousands, if not millions of people, depending on how big the war, but let's say thousands of people, are sold on a rhetoric or a story, right? Because imagine the propaganda that has to go on to take those people, to make them subhuman, to where you can lift your musket or your rifle or your drone controller and then drop something on those beings.
Right?
You imagine the sales pitch that somebody has to feel. Imagine the internal anger that human being has to already feel inside in order to be able to take the sales pitch and go, yeah, I'll marry that.
Right.
And then continue to execute the order of kill because they're subhuman. Because it's us versus them.
Right. I mean, that's...
No, I understand, in Ukraine, they're defending their land.
Sure.
Right? Because if they don't defend their land, now Russia occupies Ukraine. And their children are now being raised by the rhetoric of this being, in this case, Putin, who does not assimilate or propagate love and light.
Right.
So in that case, I do understand that there is this conundrum of, well, how do I not defend something that I believe in order to allow love and light to stay in this country?
And I do understand if I don't go, then I get thrown in jail or worse from the other side. I get that.
Yeah, we know
that's tough.
we know someone who, like, within the last year, who had to immigrate to United States under political asylum because if they didn't,
they're of draft age.
They would be of draft age, and they would have had to go into war to fight the war. Now, this is Russian. They're Russian. They would have been drafted into the Russian war, which they basically opposed, right? Because there was no other option.
But couldn't say anything about it.
Yes.
You can't express an anti-war opinion
in
over
Russia.
there.
Yeah. And so maybe that is something that we should say. We know Russians who were in Russia when this whole thing started, who basically say the country, that the citizens of the country, the normal folk, are not allowed to say no against this war because there's consequences to say no. And then thus, it's either they go fight, or in this case, these particular group of people were lucky enough to be able to reach immigration asylum political asylum and then get out of the country. But that is so difficult and so far and few in
Right.
between.
You have to be
Sponsored,
You have to
which
be
means you have to have someone here.
You have to have, and you probably have to have money to do it. I imagine it's not cheap.
Yeah.
The legal.
No, it's when we refugeed here from Ukraine back in the 90s, it was a very difficult process. So
it took a long time.
Yeah, it took a long time.
You get drafted before that's over.
Yeah. So the fact that they were able to come over before.
Yeah.
So I will say this: there are very difficult decisions, right? There's very justifiable decisions on the surface to where
it's not easy. It's not right.
But putting more fuel into a fire does not stop the fire.
Yeah.
Right. And so going forward, I know we need to wrap up, but going forward, what I want to emphasize is each one of us has a responsibility within ourselves, and in fact, a choice of how we want our future to look like. And how bad do we want it to get? Right? And we don't have to agree or see everybody else's side, but I think we should approach it with compassion. And if we do get stirred about somebody else's actions and somebody else's anger and judgment and feel like we need to oppose their view, we should look inside and go, what causes me to quite literally marry my energy with their energy?
Yeah.
Maybe you perceive it to be a flip side, a mirror side of that, but recognize it is still the same energy that they're propagating that you're then mirroring in your response to them.
We did the protest downtown. We also went to the local Buddhist centers. It wasn't a protest. It was more of a pro-peace thing.
Well, no, it was remembrance.
Oh,
yeah, we have a friend who does a yearly remembrance.
Was it the anniversary of the Hiroshima bomb?
Yes.
Okay. It was remembrance, but also the Ukrainian war had recently started, and that was also kind of on everybody's mind because,
Well, yeah, the reason why he asked me to speak at the remembrance ceremony was because I was Ukrainian.
Token Ukrainian.
And he wanted me to weigh in with, here's Hiroshima, right? I think it was some large number. What was that? This would have been 2023. 2023?
Last year.
Oh, it was 2022?
Maybe 2021.
Well, I mean, he does it every year.
Yeah,
but this was a big number.
I would say 21, maybe.
No, because the Buddhist Center was closed during COVID.
That was 2020.
And much, much later.
But we were all outside.
Yeah, because the Buddhist Center didn't open for years.
I don't think it was. It wasn't 23. It wasn't last year.
Okay, well, maybe 22. Whatever it was. Maybe it was 22. Okay, yeah, 22. And so he asked me to speak. Well, Ukrainian war would have started. So 2021 Ukrainian war wasn't happening yet.
Yeah.
And so he asked me to speak on the thing.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why he commemorates the anniversary, and especially big numbers, of the Hiroshima explosion is to draw awareness to peace.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Where I was going with that was the stark difference between this anti-war protest and this pro-peace community.
Mm-hmm.
It was night and day.
Yeah.
There was this one. It was anti-war, which on the surface might sound like the right thing, but yet there was so much hatred.
Well, the people who are running it were angry.
Yes. And I understand why you would be angry. I do. But it was just so angry of a gathering versus this one was just so peaceful of a gathering.
Mm-hmm.
It was just night and day.
Yeah. Yeah. When we went to the Ukrainian one, I went there in peace.
Yeah, I did too. And
with the intention of inserting the energy of peace.
Right.
Because there's so much hatred within even American Ukrainian community.
I knew how it was going to be.
Oh, you knew it was going to be that
I
way?
figured that's how it was going to be. I didn't know.
I didn't realize it was going to get radical.
It was that. I didn't realize it was going to be that extreme. I thought it was going to be. I didn't know it was going to be. Fuck Putin, yelled from the streets level.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should clarify why the Ukrainian woman who ran the protest here also has an African American boyfriend, and the radicalism that she felt inside was the same radicalism that our city, where I live in Louisville, had after the Breonna Taylor shooting.
Oh, that's right.
So the city, our city, and I have done a lot of energy work on the city to mitigate this, but you know, the hatred that United States experienced after George Floyd, right, and then Breonna Taylor. I guess for those of you who are not familiar, basically it was an African American woman in the apartment complex with her boyfriend. And at some point, correct me if I'm wrong, the Louisville Police Department decided that he was a drug dealer
or something.
It doesn't.
They decided he was a bad guy.
He was a bad guy,
and
then they stormed his apartment.
A no-knock warrant where they just knocked the door down
and start
blazing.
Shooting. Yeah, SWAT team style.
SWAT team came in,
and then basically started shooting.
She's just unarmed woman sitting on the couch.
I think she was just sleeping.
And she gets shot by the police.
Yeah, an innocent woman
dies.
An innocent woman dies who just happens to be a girlfriend of the guy that they deemed to be
right.
And then they arrest him. And then
he got shot, but he survived.
Yeah.
Turns out, not a drug dealer. Turns out, oops, I don't know what the mix-up was, but
yeah. And so the city was angry, right? The community, right, both on the African American side and the white side, was just angry.
Right. I mean, I understand the outrage,
police brutality,
the
racism in the city.
Right. It seems unjustifiable.
Yes. And so during that time, we were still at the clasp of all the protests. And then I think Louisville drew a lot of national attention to where everybody on the national level who were processing police brutality had their little swing that came through Louisville. And so we had months and months of what is at least a month or two of when the curfew, when you don't go out.
Yeah.
Downtown.
Like curfew.
Yeah. Like we had curfew to where like nobody out downtown, because they were trying to prevent the escalation of these protests.
Into like riots.
Riots, yeah. There's a lot of riots in Louisville, especially downtown. And so this Ukrainian woman participated in the African American movement and then, white movement too, against police brutality. But that anger and rage that she already felt was existent before. Then it presents itself out onto police brutality, anger, and rage, right? Stop shooting, stop killing. And then guess what? The next opportunity that comes up for that to be expressed comes at, oh, guess what? Ukraine is now at war. Let me protest it on this side.
I did not realize that.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No.
Okay. And so that anger, the fuck, right, whenever you say fuck, there is some anger in it. I recognize anytime a fuck is flying out of me, it is not because there is not residual pain that I'm feeling behind that statement.
Yeah.
And so that anger that came out was really kind of from her, driven from her pain body of what it meant to be Ukrainian, what it meant to be disrespected by the Russians, what it meant from her boyfriend being disrespected and marginalized in Louisville or in America as an African American. And the entire city just fed that, right? So as an egregore, as an energy, our city was already charged with the energy of hate.
Yeah, yeah.
And injustice.
Okay.
And how do we fight injustice?
Right.
And so, she already had the megaphone. She didn't have to go buy it. And it just propagated into that. Right. Yeah. And so that blind anger that we feel inside will always be extrapolated out onto the outside events, sources. People will find anything to grab onto in order to justify why they can continue to externalize this out as opposed to go within.
Yeah. I guess to anybody who wants to, who can't fathom how it could be any different, I would say attend a Buddhist get together, and you would see how, oh, this is how you this is how you do it the right way. This is how you can do it. This is how you can do it from a perspective of peace and love, instead of from a perspective of anti X, anti war, anti hate, anti whatever. Yes, I understand we don't like war, we don't like hate. I get that, but instead of being against that, being pro
Peace.
love and light and peace,
Yeah.
harmony,
Right.
and cooperation and unity.
Yeah. Maybe this is a very easy way for someone to comprehend this. If we take concepts out, and if we look at everything as an energetic signature, like an energetic bubble, right? And we have a bubble of war, right? And all the anger and hatred and justification that we have for war. And anytime you assimilate like-minded feeling into that, you're just putting more energy into that bubble. That bubble is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And the question is, am I feeling the same? Take out the justification. Take out the like, well, yes, because, right? Because you can find endless justification. Am I feeling the same as that bubble? Even if it's just a mirror concept of that bubble. Start to recognize that what you're feeling is just a mirror concept of that bubble.
Yeah.
And then make a judgment call. Do I decide to put my energy? Let's say you are a sovereign being. We're all sovereign beings. And we have a choice into where we put our energy. Do you, right, just step back just for yourself, not your friends, not your social circles, not what the norms are, but within yourself. Do you want to put more energy into that bubble?
Right.
Be it against it or for it. Is this something that is resonating with you? Or is it an alternative? And that is the peace.
Right.
Within. The love, the light, the understanding, the compassion.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be a Buddhist here, right? Or Dalai Lama or Gandhi or whatever. I'm not trying to sales pitch them. But if you just go within and you go, what does peace feel like? And then if I had to go into that circle, is that peace there? Or is it something different?
Right. Someone said, I don't remember how they said it, but it was basically along the lines of don't be anti anything, be pro whatever the good thing. Don't be anti the bad thing, be pro whatever the good thing is.
The good thing is just love.
Yes. In the end,
only if we want change, maybe this is the important part to understand. If we want change, the only way that change can come about is not through yelling of the opposite message of whatever this hate is to completely dissociating ourselves from that and actually just going into love. Whatever that means.
Yeah.
Like, if there's a protest and you don't want to participate in that, right? Or you choose to not want war to be your gimmick, then I don't know, go to a meditation garden. And if they're an hour protesting, you meditate for an hour. Or if they're an hour protesting, I don't know, you go and you water the flowers at a local park. Take an action of self that is completely in opposite direction of these lower emotions.
Yeah.
And then quite literally just on your own, without any movement, go talk to a tree. I don't know, is that crazy? Or go watch a river flow. Or, I don't know, go bird watching. Just pick anything that has the signature of love and compassion and understanding and maybe just quietness in it.
Yeah.
Create quiet when there is chaos. And this would have been really hard for me to understand because when the Ukrainian conflict happened, I was like, oh my gosh, one, I went into like a crazy shutdown mode because it registered with me so hard. And then at the same time, because I was into energy work, I felt responsibility, like I need to do something, right? And so I was like, what do I do? And so I'm like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do to promote peace? And then what I was guided to do, like weeks later, I think my response was very delayed, was to organize a meditation session online, on Zoom, just to get everyone into meditation. And then the meditation that I guided was just basically of connection to love.
Yeah.
And so the message that I got is, you don't have to participate in 1,000 people protest. You yourself can just sit in meditation for 1 hour and enter into the space of personal sovereignty and love. And that would be enough to offset any movement out there by tens of thousands into hatred, because that frequency is so much lower and denser than even you alone with 1 hour of love or bird watching or listening to trees or a walk in nature or just sitting by a creek. The frequency of that is amplified in divine light so much more than the frequency of hate. That would be enough to change this world.
Yeah.
And it is difficult from the human standpoint to see that. Like, it was hard for me to see that.
Right. It is, because it's like, yeah, but that doesn't stop them.
Yeah, but because you're
where you go.
quantitatively
Yeah.
judging, like, well, that's not enough. I'm just one being, and look, I'm just quite literally sitting there doing nothing. But if you look at propagation of energy and recognize the sovereign power of your true love is tenfold to thousands of people screaming hatred, you can see hope. I know, who is that we just heard that the Buddhist, is it the Buddhists that don't believe in hope? Or is it?
Yeah, because hope is in the future.
Is in the future, right? But I think
that's an insult to now.
Yeah, but in now you can experience peace and tranquility.
Yeah.
And then recognize that is more powerful tenfold than quite literally thousands of people screaming hate.
Right.
Yeah, and it was really hard for me to see that, right? Like, to
me, it flies in the face of conventional thinking, for sure.
Yeah. Before I started channeling, right, that was the conundrum that I was facing. I was like, okay, so I'm supposed to propagate love and light, and that's supposed to save the world. I'm like me, like quite literally me.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm like, I don't even think I have a voice. I don't have a
voice, don't have a platform. What who's going to listen to little old me?
Yeah, but
right?
but guess what? Internally, I feel that pull of like, oh my gosh, this love that I feel inside is my essence. And guess what? Everyone has this love inside of them. And so that shame of, like, I say shame, I know that's a judgment there, but for me to imagine somebody were to be stomping on the bug instead of feeling the love of divine that is within their stomach growing in their womb, to me was just like so stark. Then I'm like, okay, I have no option. It doesn't even matter that it's me. I might not understand the science behind multiplication of love language versus, demultiplication of judgment. But I'm just gonna go with it. Guess the pull inside into that light is just all consuming. And so what I wanted to emphasize is everyone has that pull.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all being called into ourselves.
How do you express it? I mean, that's the question to everybody, is how are you going to express it? By or by going within?
Going within, which is really hard. I will admit that it's so hard.
It is hard. It is
the hardest thing you can do,
right?
To see through your own bullshit and decide to marry truth.
Yeah.
Like, I give everyone props for trying. I'm still trying, and it's difficult.
I'm still trying.
And I have all the guidance in the world behind me, and it's difficult.
Yeah.
But maybe recognize that the guidance is there, right? There's people like me, there's people like you, there's other people who are going through the same thing, who have an opinion, who have something to weigh in, to just give you courage to once again choose differently
That
and once again choose differently.
that video we watched yesterday was so inspiring to see all these different people from all these different religions and backgrounds, all with the same message of just love. If what you're doing or what you're participating in, or the message you're being given, or whatever has any hatred in it at all, then it's not the right message, and you need to find something else. Go and that's where you find it is with
Yeah, but if something's in you and it's resonating hatred and anger, then ask why. Right? That's my whole thing is why. Why are you angry?
Right.
Why does this make you
Some
angry?
awareness.
Wait, right? To begin with, why am I angry? Why is this thing that is happening on the outside world that has nothing to do with me? Because let's be honest, most of us in America are sitting in their cushy homes with air conditioning and heating and all the food that we can want.
And flat screen TVs.
And flat screen TVs by the dozens.
iPhones and yeah.
Why are we getting angry? And then maybe pause and go, what's inside of me that is causing me to be angry?
Right. Yeah. Chances are if you're angry about something out there, it's really something inside.
Mm-hmm. Again, that is not to say that you cannot take action against bettering the environment, spreading love, right? I'm not saying zero action. Sit on your couch and do nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's important.
But that is a different take on the energetic interpretation of adding on to judgment and anger, or then doing it in love and peace. Like Hiroshima bombing vigil, right?
Yeah.
Was that. And the protests in Ukraine was total hatred with megaphone. Right?
Yeah.
If you're screaming into a megaphone, there might be a problem.
How else are they going to hear you?
Wrap?
It's a wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you.